Hello, romance book lovers. Welcome to Tales from the Heart. I'm Jenna Harte, and each week I post new episodes from my stories of crime and passion. Right now, we're listening to Til Death Do Us Part, Book 4, The Valentine Mysteries. This week is Episode 3, Chapter 3. Now, if you'd like to read along or get ahead in the story, you can get Til Death Do Us Part from your favorite ebook retailer or save by buying direct from me. Now, Til Death Do Us Part is the fourth book in the series. If you missed Book 1, Deadly Valentine, you can listen by checking earlier episode postings, or if you'd like to read it, you can get Deadly Valentine for free at my website, jennaharte.com. Books 2 and 3, Old Flames Never Die, and With This Ring I Thee Kill, are also available in earlier episode postings or available to read at your favorite ebook retailers, or you can get it for less through my shop. Tales from the Heart is posted to YouTube and podcasts each week. These episodes are edited to censor out any intimate content. Now, if you'd like to have a version that includes those spicier bits, plus get early access, behind-the-scenes information about the stories, bonus content, and more, please consider joining my free, exclusive Sweetheart group over at jennaharte.com. Now, never miss the mystery or romance by hitting the subscribe button, and remember that all the details and links that you might need are just a click away in the description. Now, snuggle up, get comfy, and enjoy the show.
Chapter 3. Ava headed to the bathroom to clean up, leaving Jack and Tess to wait.
Do you think she'll be all right?
It depends.
Jack watched as Ava closed the door.
On what Amya does.
He nodded.
It's tragic. She and Reese love each other and yet can't seem to work it out.
They've got a lot of hurt between them.
It could have been us.
What do you mean?
He asked.
We had times when we loved each other but couldn't get over the hurt or get out of our own way.
His features softened.
There was no other way my life was going to end up but with you.
She smiled and let the ooey-gooey feelings wrap around her heart. She leaned into him.
You know what I'm talking about.
His hands rubbed up and down her back.
We had some difficult moments, but we're not quite as stubborn as they are. At least I'm not.
She made a squinty face. He grinned. The door to the bathroom opened, and Ava emerged a movie star. Like a mask, she put on a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Tess saw the pain and sorrow, remembered feeling like that once. She was grateful that she and Jack had worked things out. She wondered if Ava and Reese would be able to as well.
I think I'm ready,
Ava announced.
You don't have to do this,
Jack said.
Yes, I do. It's my movie. I'm not going to let Amya take any more from me. Besides, you'll be there to make sure I don't rip her eyes out.
if you're sure.
Positive.
They made their way down to the hotel lobby and toward the ballroom hosting the party.
Ms. Dumont?
A young woman excitedly approached her. Tess could feel the change in Ava from regular person to celebrity.
Hello,
Ava said.
I'm Carrie Ann Medfield. I'm your concierge while you're here at the Jefferson Inn. I'm so excited to work with you. I've seen all your work.
Thank you.
I loved Order in the Court. I hope I'm able to find a man and have a marriage like Alex and Ashlyn.
Carrie Ann said, referring to Reese and Ava's characters.
Wouldn't we all?
Tess considered, then opted not to mention she and Jack were living in wedded bliss. Carrie Ann looked at Jack and Tess, and then around them.
Is Mr. Wilder with you?
I'm sure he'll be here shortly,
Ava said, her voice showing the first signs of annoyance. Carrie Ann frowned, looking at Jack.
Are you an actor? You look familiar?
I'm an old friend.
Tess could see when recognition hit Carrie Ann's eyes. She'd seen him with Ava in the tabloids. She couldn't hide her disappointment. Tess was about to introduce herself as Jack's wife, but Carrie Ann had already turned her attention back to Ava.
If there's anything you need, you let me know.
She handed Ava a business card.
Thank you, Carrie Ann.
I know you're going to the party, but can I have your autograph?
Carrie Ann thrust a pen and hotel napkin toward Ava.
Of course.
Ava scribbled her signature and handed it back to Carrie Ann.
Thank you. And don't forget, give me a ring if you need anything.
I will. Thank you.
Ava started toward the ballroom.
Nothing like a fan to boost your morale.
I don't know, I think she was disappointed.
Tess said.
What? Why?
I think she was hoping you and Reese would be together.
Tess answered. Ava rolled her eyes.
Life is full of disappointments.
They stepped into the ballroom, already filled with people.
Ms. Dumont, welcome to the Jefferson Inn.
A man in a suit with a hotel badge pinned to his lapel said,
The bar is open,
he gestured with his hand.
and we have a buffet of food including caviar and fresh salmon.
Thank you.
She said.
How do they get fresh salmon to Virginia?
She asked as they walked further into the ballroom.
I went to a restaurant in Richmond once that boasted of getting fresh mahi-mahi from Hawaii every day.
Tess said. Jack shuddered.
Imagine the jet fuel that uses.
Even the East Coast deserves fresh Pacific Coast fish.
Ava teased.
How about a drink?
Jack asked.
Wine?
White.
Tess nodded.
That sounds good.
Ava agreed. Tess watched, admiring her man as he made his way through the crowd to the bar.
You did well there.
Ava said.
I know.
I was afraid you wouldn't ever come to your senses.
Sometimes history and experience can make it hard to see the forest through the trees.
Tess said, wondering if Ava would understand. Both she and Reese would need to come to their senses if they had any chance. Before Ava could respond, a male voice called out her name.
Ava, there you are.
Tess recognized Jim McDermott moving toward them. He'd been in TV and movies for 30 years, but to Tess's eye, he looked even more handsome in his 60s. His sculpted beard and silver hair made him look distinguished in a devilish way.
Jim, how are you?
Ava exchanged a kiss on the cheek with him.
I'm awash in beautiful women. How do you think I feel?
Jim, this is Tess Valentine, the wife of a close friend of mine.
Such pretty women in the South.
He took Tess's hand and brought it to his lips. Tess admitted only to herself that there was a little thrill having Jim McDermott winking at her as he kissed her hand.
She's not from here,
Ava said, making Tess wonder how much of her life Jack had told her. Probably everything.
Where are you from originally?
He asked.
San Francisco.
That's a long ways away. How did you end up in this quaint little town?
It's a long story.
Tess said.
Maybe we could get a drink and you can tell it to me.
Did you miss the part where I told you she was married?
Ava asked.
So, I was married 3 times.
Yeah, well, Tess and Jack are the forever type.
Ava responded.
I agree with that.
Jack said, stepping up to the group. He handed both women a glass of wine. He kept a beer for himself.
Jack, this man hitting on your wife is Jim McDermott.
If Jim was concerned about being caught trying to seduce another man's wife, it didn't show. With the same relaxed charm he showed Tess, he reached out to shake Jack's hand.
Is he having any luck?
Jack asked. Jim laughed.
None.
Jim plays my father in the movie.
Ava said.
I don't know why. I think you and I could heat up the screen.
Jim said.
I'm not sure Reese will do you justice. It's his stamina.
Ava said.
Ah, you cut me. Perhaps one of those young women over there will appreciate a man with vast experience.
Ava laughed.
They probably will.
It was nice meeting you both.
Jim said to Jack and Tess before moving towards a group of young women.
He acts like a hound dog, but he's actually very nice.
Ava said.
Were you tempted?
Jack asked Tess. She pretended to think about it, but then smiled at him.
Not at all.
Here's to you two and happily ever after,
Ava said, lifting her drink. Jack and Tess toasted with her.
So are all these people working on the movie?
Tess asked. Ava nodded.
Most work behind the scenes. The director, Mel Coker, is known for having these little parties, especially on location shoots, as a way to bring everyone together.
They relaxed into easy conversation until Jack stiffened next to her.
Ava.
His voice sounded like a warning. Tess looking the direction of his gaze and saw Amya walking directly toward them.
Uh-oh.
What?
Ava looked over her shoulder, then quickly turned back.
Son of a...
Ava.
Amya said as she came to stand next to her. A range of expressions crossed Ava's face as she sought what to say. Tess imagined none of her go-to responses were positive. Amya's dismissing eyes glanced over Jack and Tess.
I was hoping we could chat, alone.
You can say whatever you came to say in front Jack and Tess.
Undaunted, Amya said,
If you insist, I know what you're trying to do.
You have a problem with me spending an evening with my friends?
Reese and I are working things out.
Amya ignored Ava's snark.
That's not what he said when he came to my room earlier.
Ava added a slight waggle of her eyebrow and breathlessness to her voice. There was no missing the innuendo in her statement. Amya jerked. Anger flared in her eyes, but she tamped it down.
We're still married.
He didn't seem to see it that way.
I'm warning you.
Amya said, the anger starting to get away from her.
I'll ruin you both, and this movie.
To her credit, Ava stayed calm.
If you love him, why are you threatening to ruin him? That's not love, Amya. That's psychotic obsession.
You think this is a joke?
Amya seethed.
I think you're a joke. I don't know why you're here, and I don't care. If you want Reese and can dupe him into taking you back, have at it. Just stay the hell away from me.
Ava started to turn away. Amya reached out, her hand clamping down over Ava's forearm. At first, Tess only noticed Ava's arm jerk, her drink sloshing out of her glass onto Tess's dress. Then she saw Ava's other arm coming across her body, ending in a loud smack that echoed through the ballroom as it found its mark on Amya's cheek. Jack moved quickly to block any further attack Ava might attempt, but she stood her ground.
Don't touch me.
Amya staggered back as surprise, then anger, reddened her features.
That's assault. I'm going to press charges.
Go ahead, Amya. Tattle, manipulate, and whine all you want. It's what you're best at.
Tess could feel the attention of others in the ballroom turn toward the scene unfolding in front of them.
They're witnesses. You're going to jail.
Amya hissed.
You saw it. You saw her hit me.
Tess nodded.
Yes.
She felt Jack's hand squeeze her waist. She interpreted it to mean, don't get Ava in trouble. But Tess knew what she was doing.
But I would also have to tell them what led up to her slapping you.
I didn't do anything.
Amya said incredulously.
You grabbed her arm, at least that's what I saw. Did you see it?
Jack's hand loosened. To his credit, he made his face look remorseful.
Yes, you did grab her arm.
I was stopping her from walking away. I just wanted to talk.
I understand, but, well, you threatened her too.
Tess said. Amya turned her fierce, pointed face to Tess.
You think she's your friend, but she's a cold, conniving bitch. I'd keep your man away from her if I were you.
You've got me confused with you.
Ava retorted.
This isn't over.
Amya gave Ava one last heated glare, then stalked out of the ballroom.
Well,
Ava said, taking a long, calming breath.
That was fun.
Yeah, except she got wine all over my dress.
Tess said.
Oh, that's not good.
Ava said.
It's not.
Jack agreed.
I like her backside in that dress.
Tess's jaw dropped. It was one thing to engage in innuendo at home, but a whole other thing in public. In front of a celebrity, no less.
I always thought you were a breast man, Jack.
Ava said. Tess's gape remained in place as she turned to Ava.
When it comes to Tess, I like the whole package.
He added a wink when Tess's head whipped back to him.
Well, if you're done discussing my assets.
Admiring your assets.
Jack tossed in. Tess let out an embarrassed breath.
I'm going to go to the restroom to see if I can do anything with this stain.
Tess was still shaking her head as she entered the ladies' room, hidden in a corner of the lobby. She realized her insecurity about Jack and Ava's relationship was not needed. They behaved more like mischievous siblings than former lovers. She reached the sink area and found the hand towels, dabbing one on the wet spot of her dress. She sighed as she realized most of the wine was already soaked in. She hoped that the dry cleaner would be able to get the stain out. Deciding to make the best of the visit, she checked her hair and makeup. Everything was in place. With a final glance and frown at her dress, she headed back to the ballroom. She opened the door and stepped out into the narrow hall that also housed the men's room and a payphone. As she reached the end of the hall and started to make the left turn toward the ballroom, she noticed Amya and Reese in an animated huddle to her right. Reese's features were fierce, and while Tess couldn't hear what he said, there was no doubt he wasn't happy to see her. Surprisingly, Amya was crying as she extended a hand to him. He stepped back, out of her reach. Although she felt guilty about it, Tess maneuvered closer without them noticing. She pulled her phone from her purse, giving the appearance she was checking messages.
I don't want you here. I don't want you at all,
Reese said.
Reese, don't.
No, you don't, Amya. I've given you everything you asked for in the divorce. You've got plenty of money, the fancy house in Malibu, and a career you can revive if you want to.
But I love you.
She wailed. He scoffed.
You don't love me. You don't love anybody but yourself. You made a fool out of me, Amya. You stole 2 years of my life. I've had enough.
She jerked back, and the sad, weepy Amya morphed. Her brows pulled together, lips thinned.
I won't let you do this.
You have no choice.
I will ruin you.
Amya promised.
Nothing you can do now will be worse than you've already done.
I'll make sure this movie is a flop. You won't work again.
Your threats mean nothing. I don't care if I work.
You just want her after what she did?
And what about what you did, Amya? Why would I want you after that?
I'll ruin her. I can, you know.
Reese's already angry features turned darker, deadly as he leaned forward.
You go near her and I'll end you.
Tess had to swallow at the lethal tone in his voice. Amya didn't back off, but she did hesitate.
Take your hate and your viciousness and get out,
Reese said.
I'm not done.
Reese shook his head.
What the hell is wrong with you? You are done. We're done. And if you don't get out, I'll file a restraining order.
Shock widened her eyes, but she didn't back off.
You'll be sorry.
I'm already sorry.
Apparently, Reese decided he'd had enough. With a look of disgust, he stalked towards the ballroom, leaving Amya fuming behind. Tess busied herself with her phone, hoping no one noticed her eavesdropping. Both Reese and Amya were too lost in their own anger to pay attention to her. Reese blew by her without a glance and headed to the ballroom. Amya made her way up the hall toward the bathroom. Tess put her phone back in her purse and returned to the ballroom. She saw Reese at the bar and decided to talk to him. She wasn't sure what she'd say. She still felt a little starstruck, even after the very human argument she just witnessed. She stepped up to the bar next to him and ordered 2 seltzer waters with lime for her and Jack. She decided this was a night to keep one's wits about them. At first, Reese didn't notice she was there, but Tess purposefully bumped against him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He nodded.
It's all right.
Tess thought there was a lost, almost hopelessness in his eyes, until recognition showed.
You're Ava's friend, Tess.
Yes.
Tess said, surprised and pleased he'd remembered her name.
I'm sorry about that scene.
Tess wondered if maybe he did see her eavesdropping.
I hadn't seen Ava in a long time. Too long, I guess.
I understand.
Tess said, realizing he was talking about when they were in Ava's room.
You have to have known she'd be angry and not want to make things easy for you.
He laughed.
Easy is not a word I'd associate with Ava.
His smile dimmed.
It doesn't matter now.
Why? Because of your wife?
He shook his head, not in denial, but in defeat.
I don't understand why she keeps coming at Ava, at me.
His eyes were on Ava across the room. Tess began to think Ava had been onto something when she said Amya was psycho, although the diagnosis was more likely sociopath with some narcissism thrown in. Tess watched enough forensic shows to know that could be deadly, but she decided she wouldn't focus on that.
Did you believe Ava?
Tess asked.
About her and Drew?
Tess nodded. He shrugged and turned back to his drink.
So you don't believe her?
Honestly, I don't know. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen the letter.
Tess agreed that would be hard to overcome.
But Ava's theory is possible, right? Is that what makes you unsure?
I've learned that Amya is capable of anything to get what she wants.
If you love Ava and want to see what you two might have together, you have to believe her.
His brows drew together, as if he didn't quite understand.
Ava wasn't angry that you told her you loved her, maybe annoyed. What made her angry was that she could see you didn't believe her.
He paused, pondered what she said. Tess picked up her seltzer waters.
I've got to get back.
He nodded.
Maybe you could join us.
Looks like you made a friend,
Jack said as she rejoined him. Tess glanced over her shoulder and saw Reese make his way to them. His progression was slow as people stopped him on his way. He threw on an easy smile, shook hands much in the way Ava did. Tess wondered if that was taught in celebrity school. Hide the pain and sorrow to put on a good show.
Mind if I join you?
Reese said when he reached them.
Where's your worse half?
Ava asked.
Not here.
Are you sure about that?
He hesitated.
Are you afraid of her?
She waved her hand.
But I'm not in the mood for her, and I would rather not end up in jail.
If she shows up, I'll take care of it.
Ava shrugged as if she didn't care. But Tess could see in Ava's eyes that she cared a great deal.
Suit yourself.
Do you think we can talk alone?
I can't leave my guests alone.
Tess would have disagreed, but she remembered Ava had wanted them to stay close by, so she didn't say anything. Neither did Jack. Hours later, Tess sat at one of the tables, her feet in Jack's lap as he massaged them. A few members of the movie staff lingered, but the hotel workers had long ago packed up and left. Unlike life in Hollywood, life in Central Virginia usually closed up by 9 p.m. Ava and Reese stood a little distance away, still talking. Jack suspected they'd talk all night if allowed. He wasn't against that, but he wasn't going to stay all night.
Let's go,
he said with a light tap to Tess's shin.
Go, as in go home?
Yes, come on.
He helped her get her shoes back on and then extended a hand to help her stand.
My feet are unhappy again.
We'll get them home.
He took her hand and walked with her to where Reese and Ava stood.
We're going to head out.
Jack said.
Oh, is it late?
Late enough.
Will you two walk me up to my room?
Ava asked.
I could walk you.
Reese said.
Thank you, but I've ditched them long enough and I'd like to see them off.
He nodded.
I'll see you tomorrow then.
He leaned forward, kissed her on the cheek. As he left, Ava watched, her eyes a little dreamy.
That seemed to have gone well,
Tess said as they were in the elevator heading back up to Ava's room.
He says he believes me about Drew. I didn't think he did at first.
Do you think Amya set you up?
Tess asked.
Yes. There's never been any doubt that she wanted Reese, but I underestimated her. I won't do that again.
What does it say about Reese that he'd so easily turn against you?
Jack asked.
It shows just how manipulative Amya can be.
They stood outside Ava's door.
I don't know what's going to happen between Reese and me, but he was a good friend once, and if I can get that back, I'll be happy.
Well then, that's all that matters,
Jack said.
Want to come in for a nightcap?
Jack shook his head.
We need to get home. Tess is opening the shop tomorrow, and I have to get ready to head up to Washington to meet with Brad.
How long are you out of town?
Ava asked.
Until Monday.
Maybe you and I could have a little sleepover,
Ava said.
I can tell you all about Jack during his childhood and rebellious teenage years.
Tess looked a little too interested for Jack's taste.
There isn't much to tell.
Still, I'd like to hear it,
Tess said.
We'll talk tomorrow,
he said to Ava.
Good night,
she called after them.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Tales from the Heart. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll be back to find out what happens next. Now remember, members of my Sweetheart group can listen to full uncensored episodes through my website. Just visit jennaharte.com and click to become a sweetheart for access to uncensored audio episodes, bonus content, and more. Now, if you'd like to read along or get ahead in the story, you can get Til Death Do Us Part from your favorite ebook retailer, or you can save by buying direct from me. All the details and links you might need are just a click away in the description. Now, don't miss the next episode. Hit the subscribe button so you know when it's posted. Thank you again for listening, and until next time, this is Jenna Harte wishing you peace, love, and happily ever after.